I just like talked myself out of it. I was just like, I don't know. This is Joel. He'll find a way to trick me, and then I'm gonna be down in exchange. And like, this was my thought process. Like, he'll trick me, and I'm gonna be down in exchange. And he'll slowly convert it. Then after the game, and be like, why did I give up the exchange for no reason? You know, I was doing fine. So if you guys are interested, I'd be happy to try to find a game where, you know, maybe I like misevaluated something and then I learned from it. This is a pretty fun one, actually. Yeah, let me show, because this one I hardcore. I learned from this one. So this is my game against Joel Banawa, who's an international master and actually a good friend of mine. I've known him for many years, and we've played a lot of games. And for the most part, Joel has always been better than me. Like, I'm looking through our games, and it's like it's not a good score. In fact, in most of our games, I was playing white, and I lost most of them. So a lot of traumatic memories with Joel, because he was always like a stronger player. But okay, it got better over time and kind of closed the gap. And at this point, at the time of this game, let's see, I'm 2190, I think FIDE, and he's around 2400. So he still has a solid 200 points on me. Anyway, so he plays this like weird opening. I think that it's called the Beefeater nowadays. And we get some like weird endgame. And here comes a critical moment. I play rook h6 here. I'm actually feeling pretty good about my position at this point. We have the two bishops, but a very bad structure. But at the same time, like, black's pieces on the queen side, especially knight on a6 and bishop on c8, really bad pieces. So white does have kind of a lead in time on the king side here and some initiative, right? Okay, so black goes g5. And I think I didn't really see the idea right away, because my first thought here was to play like knight h5. And then I realized, oh, knight h5 is like, has this threat, like knight f6, like knight h5 I can take, and then go knight f6 check and try to pick up the rook. And then I realized, well, hold on, actually, maybe I can go rook takes d6 in this position. And then black will be forced to take. And then I'll go knight h5, threatening knight f6 check. But like, this structure started to appeal to me quite a bit. It's like, if I take, all of a sudden, like, the bishop is stuck, and black has a really hard time getting his pieces out, because this knight is also just like, doesn't have a way to get to the king side. So I was calculating like rook takes d6, e takes d6, knight h5, and then the plan from there would be like bishop d3. So I'm going to ask you guys to visualize this one so you can kind of see like what it was like for me, right? Because during the game I was just considering it, right? I can't move the pieces. Can't even draw arrows. Like, arrows are already super helpful. So rook takes d6, takes knight h5, hitting the fork. Black has to defend like king f7 or something. And then white goes bishop d3 and just starts going after these pawns. And I realized it was going to be very difficult for black to defend these pawns, like knight g3. And then I can even play e4 at some point, and my king can get in, and my bishop opens up, and my rook can get in. Meanwhile, all of black's queen side is stuck, and I have like 4 pieces coming to the king side to go after these like 2 very loose pawns. And I understood, if I can win both of these pawns, then I probably just have a winning position, because I'm going to have like 2 connected passers. So long story short, I chickened out. I played rook g6. I just like talked myself out of it. I was just like, I don't know. This is Joel. He'll find a way to trick me, and then I'm gonna be down in exchange. And like, this was my thought process. Like, he'll trick me, and I'm gonna be down in exchange, and he'll slowly convert it. Then after the game, and be like, why did I give up the exchange for no reason? You know, I was doing fine. And so I play rook g6, and then we take, and it's like I'm worse in a couple moves, and yeah, actually we ended up making a draw, although I was worse, I think, for quite some time. Seems very good for white. Well, yeah, it's good when, you know, I kind of explain it like that, but during the game, you don't really, of course you don't know for sure, right? It's very easy to doubt yourself. So of course, after the game, you know, first thing I do is I go to this position and I check, you know, with probably Houdini or Ripka, whatever it was at the time. And of course it gives rook takes d6. No, this is from 2011. So yeah, of course it gives this one. And it's not like it's winning for white, but as you kind of analyze a little bit, it turns out black doesn't really have a good position here. Like king f7, for example, bishop d3, and how does black defend the pawn? Like king g6, we can go g4, and knight is coming to g3. Let's say this one, knight g3. They're going to take this one, push e4. Let's make some more moves just to make it really clear. Like, okay, black has to find a way to develop his pieces. It's not happening. Now there's already this check. We can go e4, the knight h5 check coming, king e2. Like this pawn's going to be hanging, rook comes to h1. Actually, knight e4 was already pretty good as well. We can even take here, and basically black needs a lot more moves to get the pieces out. Long story short, after the game, like I analyzed this one and then I sparred with the engine and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this is winning. I missed such a big chance. You know, like the more I analyze it, it's like, yeah, just the more white is winning. Eventually we win this pawn and then the king side just takes off. It's a very slow win. I mean, no guarantee I would have won the game. No guarantee at all. Like I could easily blunder something, but it was a nice chance. And so obviously like I was like kicking myself the whole time after that game, because you know this was like my one chance my one chance to beat Joel, right? So this would have been such a nice opportunity, such a nice game. Anyway, I ended up getting another chance a couple months later. Actually, it wasn't that long. So that obviously made, you know, pretty big impression on me. And a lot of times, you know, when you're studying chess, if something makes an impression on you, like it really sticks with you, and that's the only way that you can actually grow and learn for the future, right? So if I hadn't analyzed that game, I would have just like forgotten about it and whatever. I would like rook takes d6, maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, you know, who cares? Okay, so I had this position with white to play. Black's last move was knight e7. So this is a game against Joel again, a couple months later. And yeah, again, we have like super weird position. I've taken on some structural weaknesses, but I have some chances against black's king. And yeah, I mean, some of you guys might be thinking about it, but like I was immediately, I suddenly saw this was possible, right? Rook takes d6, rook takes d6, and then knight takes e5, check. And then the key point here that we had to notice is that the queen is going to be lined up against that rook on d6. So once the king moves out of the check, we're taking on g4 with the knight, and then the rook on d6 is going to be hanging. So basically, this is like an exchange sacrifice. We're like temporarily sacrificing the rook, but then we're going to take on e5, taking a second pawn, and then taking a piece, and black is going to have to get the rook out of the way. So I started calculating this one, and like I immediately thought of the previous game, right? Because this was only a couple months apart. It's like over the board, right? So you have a lot of time to think about your life and decisions and stuff. And so we're like, oh yeah, I had rook takes d6 back then. And so I'm like looking at it, and the more I looked at it, the more I wanted to play it, because black's position kind of collapses. We get these two pawns, and then the king starts to open up. So after, you know, spending some time, I don't even think I thought for that long. I was like, it looks good. It was winning last time. I should have gone for it. So I'm going to go for it this time and, you know, try to vindicate. So rook takes d6. I popped it. Takes. Knight takes e5. And yeah, black is in big trouble here. This is just very, very dangerous for the king. He played king to g8. And okay, I did have to calculate this line, so it wasn't just a matter of like, it wasn't just the attitude. The attitude is really important. I also had to like calculate it and make sure it's working, right? Because knight takes g4, rook g6, our knight is pinned, knight f6 check, king g7, and then queen e5. So this was the idea we had to see from afar, just to make sure it's working. Although, not necessarily. Actually, no, excuse me. I think I saw, like, king g7, we can take here. And we sack the exchange, but we have like a million pawns, and these guys are rolling. So I was pretty sure I was safe here. And on king f7, we have bishop takes h5. So that's what I saw. King f7, bishop takes h5. King g7, knight takes h5 with check. And then once we got here, I actually realized, well, maybe queen e5 is even stronger, because we're going after kind of the defenders around black's king. And so here I kind of changed my mind. Yeah, I'm pretty sure my first thought, or my initial thought, was knight takes h5, and I'm like, okay, I have the exchange, 3 pawns. My king is going to be ultra safe on d2. Looks great. And then once I got here, I was like, actually, queen e5 looks pretty good. So, queen e5. Yeah, rook g1 check, king d2. Black tried knight g6. If takes, we take on e7. And yeah, black's king is very weak. And then we're going to be just pushing these next. The knight on h3 is kind of stranded. Even a lot of endgames are going to be really good for white. Rook f7 or something. We can give check, or even play like, I think queen h4 here is pretty logical. And just going after this pawn, and playing e5, knight e4, and yeah, black just has no counterplay. King is too weak. Queen can't do anything. Our king is going to be safe. So yeah, queen e5, rook g1, king d2, knight g6, trying to keep it complicated. Knight takes h5, king h6, queen g7, king g5, gave this check. And I had such a hard time winning this game. I think I missed a lot of cleaner ways, but anyway, I push e5. The game was exciting, so I'll just play out the moves. Queen b7, king c2, knight g5, try knight f4. And then I thought it was like over, and then he hit me with this move. I was like, oh no. Oh no, what is happening? What is happening? So yeah, at this point I was like, well, good thing I took a risk, because now what to do? He's got all the checks covered, and our king is about to get under heavy fire. It's not clear if he has a mate or just a perpetual, but we get a little lucky here. We have this move, queen b6. Or maybe I even calculated, maybe I was in form and I saw that this was going to be saving us. So takes. Now we have a third pass pawn. Knight takes c3. And I push b7 here, forcing rook b1. Then I take on g6 because I didn't want to take on c3 and allow knight takes e5. But I think the best move was knight d3 here. Yeah, which is very, very nice actually. I mean, just very nice. Like keeping this one defended and then keeping an eye on the rook so there's no knight takes e2. And then if rook takes b7, we take here. And then we just have too many pawns and black is left with kind of a passive knight. So this would just be kind of winning for white. King is also close. Not easy, but I think that was the easiest way. Anyway, I take here, king takes, bishop d3 check, king f7. I'm sure I didn't play this part of the game well. King takes, rook takes b7. And now we're off to the races, like bishop f5, a5. And at this point, it's like, I don't know if I'm winning or I'm losing, but we're here. You know, I think we're probably playing, we're almost at the moment where we're playing on the increment. So d6, a4, check, king f6, e7, check, king c2, takes, and then, yeah, there's a few ways to win. I think the nicest was bishop g6. And then king takes d7. Because d7 was not possible. King takes pawn, right? But here white kind of takes advantage of the limitations of the rook. That the rook can't touch the diagonal. So that was the easiest way to win. I played bishop d7, which is also good enough. And I actually calculated that the king and pawn endgame is winning. So king f7. Sorry, no, if we do this one immediately, it doesn't work. Black is fine. But if we take this one first, and then after rook e2 check, king d3, now we're close enough. Rook e6, promotes, takes here, and that was GG. He resigned here actually. Obviously, like, you know, that was a big win for me because like it came against like a really difficult opponent, and I had to like overcome some inner demons, right? Like taking this risk, sacrificing the exchange, and then like playing it out. Like it wasn't just like, you know, if you just have a combination, you can just like calculate it out. Like that's kind of that's an easy way. That's an easy way to win. This was like, this game like dragged out. I mean, it's this whole experience, right? So it's like these experiences is what you kind of learn from the most, and that's where like the real improvement happens. When you make like really, really critical, tragic mistakes, and then you learn from them, and then one day, you know, hopefully you can make things right. But it's a long grind. I mean, as Capablanca said, you gotta lose hundreds of games. I mean, probably that's on the low side. You gotta lose thousands of games probably before you really start getting anywhere.